Joining me today is Kieran Krohn, co-founder and head of growth at ScaleStation, a HubSpot Diamond Solutions partner specializing in revenue operations and AI go-to-market. Before joining ScaleStation, Kieran built an impressive career at HubSpot, earning multiple President's Club honors as a channel account manager before stepping into sales leadership. In this episode, we explore his transition from a top-performing role in a leading SaaS multinational to co-founding a solutions partner. Kieran shares what motivated the move, how his experience shapes his approach today, and the lessons he's learned along the way. Hope you enjoy it. Kieran, so you started off in HubSpot. You were channel account manager, multiple President Clubs winner. You then moved into direct sales role, leading, I think, an SMB team. You could have gone to any vendor, could have gone into a direct sales leadership role or to head up channel for someone, but you chose to move to a partner organization within the HubSpot ecosystem called ScaleStation. How did that come about?
Yeah, it's a question that I'm sure a lot of people are probably pondering, and I've actually had that asked previously, so maybe it's good just to, kind of lay everything on the table. But for me, there was a few reasons, James. So firstly, I guess my time and experience from working at HubSpot, I was there for 8 years. 5.5 of those were on the partner side of the business. So that was my first time being exposed to a channel per se. I didn't even actually know what channel sales were before I moved into that role, funnily. But I really sort of saw the power and the potential of sort of what that can do for a business from a go-to-market perspective. I really enjoyed getting deep into working with my partners as a sort of advisor and consultant around how they ran their business and looking under the hood. And then I guess I saw a big opportunity in terms of the fact that, CRM and everything related to that particular, let's call it field or particular industry, is growing, like particularly in Australia, which is quite a laggard of a market when you compare it to the US.
Yeah.
So it's a growing market, HubSpot a growing market share. So like it has the kind of signs of things moving in the right direction. And I also saw the need for businesses to really look at a CRM, not just an administrative tool, but really a productivity and acceleration platform that can help drive better outcomes for the business and for their customers as well. And then I think also that IP that I've got, having sold HubSpot myself for 8 years, kind of solutioning around that, albeit has its challenges, felt like a sort of natural progression. I really like the ability to have impact, and impact not just on our customers and the outcomes that we can drive for them, but also the impact that I can have on ScaleStation as a business. So, going from a pretty large company, HubSpot being, $30 billion market cap, probably with 7,000 employees publicly listed, to a relatively early stage, smaller startup where I had the ability, or have the ability now every day, to kind of be more involved in terms of guiding our go-to-market, our strategy, our messaging, our branding, our pricing, how we engage with our customers. So having that flexibility and the ability to be quite influential in terms of the direction, I think was something that I was looking for.
Okay. So can you just maybe give us the elevator pitch? What does ScaleStation do?
Yeah, it's a good question, because we're actually kind of going through a bit of a pivot and a shift in terms of sort of who we are and what we do and who we serve. Probably the easiest way I could describe it is we leverage technology, strategy, and enablement across the revenue operations to help businesses become more profitable and to deliver a better customer experience. Okay. So I've probably got a few buzzwords in there. I might need to refine that, but a big part for us is around technology and AI specifically, how we can use that to automate different parts of the go-to-market process that are very mundane and very manual, to free up people to do more productive things.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw one of your clients is JobAdder, which I find interesting because JobAdder is my CRM, and obviously they use a CRM as well, which is just it's a paradox. So
yeah, for sure.
In terms of you mentioned your experience with HubSpot. Like, I suppose your co-founder Damesh, he could have gone down, a route of maybe hiring a VP of sales from like a consulting business, but he went down getting someone from the HubSpot ecosystem. How did your expertise within HubSpot sort of help your customers in ScaleStation from the start?
Yeah, I think having a deep understanding of the technology, but more importantly, like the problems that we solve and the use cases, is something that was extremely transferable. And really, at the end of the day, like we are still like positioning HubSpot in a lot of the solutions. So, there's that direct translation, but it's really like deeply understanding the problems that we solve, the customers that we serve, and the use cases across different industries. I think that has been extremely helpful. And then the other part as well would be the fact that, I was a sales manager at HubSpot for 2 years. I was an individual contributor, for about 5 or 6 years. So having that understanding in terms of sort of what it means to leverage the technology to go to market in different channels and sort of different settings has, I found, been pretty helpful in terms of providing our customers with a lot of that kind of hands-on enablement when it comes to best practice.
Yeah. So, who do you work with within your customers? Is it kind of founders of businesses, or is it specifically sales or RevOps teams?
It's a mixed bag. So we work directly with CEO, MD, founder type personas. We also work with, say, like head of RevOps. We work with sales leaders, head of marketing, CMO, etc. So there's definitely a diverse range there in terms of the types of people that we work with.
Okay. And it sounds like you were attracted to the autonomy of the role. Was there an existing go-to-market playbook before you joined, or have you been sort of building that?
I think there was. I mean, the business has done pretty well. Like, had scaled pretty fast, got to Diamond as a HubSpot solutions partner in about 10 months, which was one of the fastest I've seen for any partner in Australia, which again was probably part of the attraction to looking at how they achieved that growth so quickly. And then
how did they?
There's a few reasons. I think firstly, the sort of focus in terms of the SMB customer and being quite specific about that as a starting point, as an entry point. I mean, interestingly, I think around about 90% of businesses in Australia have less than 19 employees. So it's definitely a very small business driven economy. I think that was probably one of the reasons. But in terms of our go-to-market, yeah, definitely a big part of my role as head of growth is sort of defining and executing on that go-to-market strategy. So obviously we've got a great relationship with HubSpot, and part of my role is to build out partnerships with other technology companies, also building partnerships with similar types of businesses, for example, like creative agencies that we can complement each other. And then also sort of working on our demand gen strategy. So doing a lot of organic content creation through LinkedIn. I've got my own podcast as well. So trying to kind of diversify and widen out that mix of different channels.
Okay. How does partnerships like work for you? You mentioned creative agencies and other technology providers, but I mean, can you share an example of an existing partnership that you have at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So, well, there's a few. I can probably give you an example of one business that comes to mind, that creative agency. So they predominantly work on creative brand strategy, like a lot of the not just the aesthetic parts, but like more of the fundamental like messaging of the company, and that's something that we don't really do too much.
Okay.
So they're very good at what they do when it comes to those offerings. And I think it complements what we do in terms of the fact that they're often putting together the overarching strategy, which does involve like persona development and content. And then so what we can do is execute on that in terms of the delivery of that strategy and the delivery of that content by using systems and processes to help make that repeatable, make it scalable, make it measurable. So that's where we kind of get that symbiotic effect with that type of partnership. Another example would be, so at the moment, we're doing a lot of work in the AI space, and where, like, I just had a meeting with the founder from Grain a couple of days ago. So we're looking to build a partnership with them where we can effectively take call transcripts and then build custom solutions across the go-to-market to help to, for example, like analyze sales meetings, to populate the CRM with data, to use it across different use cases with customer success, to identify churn risk from customers, from a marketing perspective, using it to ramp up content production. So there's a few different angles that we take depending on the partnership, and we really look to have that sort of 1 + 1 = 3 where possible, to really like value add on top of whoever or alongside that we're working with.
Okay. And are they technology providers that are already within the HubSpot ecosystem, or are Grain outside of HubSpot?
Yeah, Grain have an integration with HubSpot and
Okay.
a few other technologies as well. They're not one of those applications that's gone all in on HubSpot, although there are quite a few of those. But yeah, they're in the marketplace, and there are quite a few businesses using it.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like partnerships is a big part of your go-to-market strategy. Would it be the primary go-to-market for you right now, or are you doing a lot of direct outbound and stuff as well?
Haven't done too much direct outbound, though there is plans to start executing on that in Q4. The partnership side of things definitely is a big part of our pipeline. I would say probably the majority of our business comes through partnerships at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I saw your posts, was it earlier this week or last week, about your quarterly goals with Dimesh. So you mentioned outbound being your sort of Q4 quarterly goals. What does that look like, your strategy sessions?
So I think with a startup, the thing that I've realized is, having two relatively like entrepreneurial people at the sort of, the top level of the business, Damesh and I have a lot of ideas, but it's the execution and the focus, probably more so the focus is really important in terms of, okay, we've got all these different things that we can be working on, and we've got some amazing ideas, but we just need to narrow our focus and think about like which of those are going to be most important for us right now, and thinking about sort of the overall go-to-market strategy, like which part of that strategy, because there's a lot of different facets of a go-to-market, do we need to solve right now so we can scale the business over the next couple of years.
Okay, so you're being pretty ruthless then with what your priorities are.
Yeah, I mean, we try to be, like, don't get me wrong, like, we're not perfect. There's always competing interests and there's things that come up. But I do think that having that clarity and that agreement in terms of what is the priority for this quarter, and then making sure that so the majority of what we're doing with the leadership team and with our people executing on that, that's the focus. And we have to continue to make sure that we're working towards achieving that in that quarterly period.
Okay. Well, kind of that leads me to my next question. I mean, HubSpot is such a well-oiled sales and marketing machine. How did you find challenges that you experienced moving from HubSpot into a startup where you're effectively kind of managing everything across revenue?
I mean, like, for starters, HubSpot has an incredible inbound engine. So, I mean, they are the company that coined the term, so you can probably expect that. So massive amount of inbound demand that comes through its content and its code funnels. So there's a lot of opportunity, and they've got a massive database of people that are either showing intent or at least good fit businesses that you can go after. So going from that state of, huge amount of opportunity, but also in a way, like, it's huge, but it's also constrained as well, because when you work for, most tech companies have, sales operations and RevOps teams where, the sales teams are segmented, right? Small business, mid-market, corporate/enterprise. You've got geographical territories as well. So you, in a sense, like, you are sort of like confined to work within those boundaries, which is just natural for a global company, to being on the partner side where we have no boundaries whatsoever. We can sell to any size of company, any industry, any part of the world. It doesn't matter if they're in Australia, Singapore, the US, Europe. So that's quite interesting. And I've always been, I mean, because I make music, and like one of the things I always think about is like, how do you kind of limit yourself to work within certain boundaries, which often forces you to think outside the box a little bit. Having those guardrails is sometimes a good thing. So I'm not sure if it's a positive or a negative at the moment, but I do think that it's interesting that, again, getting back to my point before, that there's countless amounts of opportunity. How do we focus to make sure that we are winning in certain areas before we expand from there?
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at HubSpot and the other reps that you sort of worked with over your time, you would have worked with many reps in your 8 years there. Would you have seen many of them being able to kind of transition into a role like that you have? And the reason I ask that is a lot of reps I speak with that are in a vendor have never thought about going partner side. When I ask them what they want to do next, it's either to move up the ladder from, SMB to mid-market to enterprise, or maybe to move into a leadership role, which might be, like a BDR manager or something. But when I mentioned, have you thought about a partner org, it kind of, it's the first time they've thought about it. And I'm trying to kind of understand what skills and attributes would actually allow them to transition into a role like you have into a startup.
Yeah, like it's definitely not for everyone, that's for sure. Particularly, you got to think about the maturity of the company that you're going to, the stage they're at within their growth journey as well. They start up, or they scale up, or they establish what kind of role that you're going to be going into. Are your skills and your desires and your interests and your passions a good fit for that role? Just that natural stuff that you'd sort of think about in terms of like fit for the role.
Yeah, fair enough. What advice would you give someone that was considering moving into a partner org? I mean, how should they evaluate the opportunity?
I think that you could do certain things in terms of looking at, I try to be as data driven as possible. So looking at the total addressable market of, the market that you're serving. If you've got partnerships, sort of the percentage of the market that those vendors might have at the moment, and what the opportunity is for them to expand. I'd probably be also looking at what's the opportunity there in terms of the growth of the company, like understanding their metrics, like what's their growth rate been over the last couple of years. Even if you wanted to get into things like understanding profitability, EBITDA, like kind of looking at those numbers to understand like the health of the business. I'd probably like to think about it that way. Not everyone's going to be the same.
So, ecosystem-led growth seems to be a bit of a buzz at the moment. It's definitely, I'm hearing it a lot more. How have you seen the shift in go-to-market from when you started at Census, was it 2010 or maybe earlier, to then moving to HubSpot and now at a services business? How have you seen the shift from outbound to inbound to now ecosystem-led growth or nearbound?
So when I was at Census, it was a purely direct-driven sales motion. There was no partnerships at all. Like I actually didn't even know that, like I mentioned earlier, that the channel of partnerships were a thing.
What is the channel?
Well, funnily enough, when I applied for the role at HubSpot, I went through the whole interview process, made it through the end, and got a call from the recruiter, and she said, "Congratulations, Kieran, you've got the job." And I was over the moon. And she said, "Yeah, so you're going to be starting the partner team." And I was like, "Partner team?" It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
So I actually didn't even know what I was getting myself into. Worked out to be the best thing that's ever happened to me, just by pure luck, I guess, in a way. But yeah, when I was at Census, it was all just direct sales. And so getting into HubSpot and really kind of seeing how the mechanics of partnerships works, and seeing how powerful it's been and how much success is driven for HubSpot. But I think that you'll see more and more of the most successful businesses that are really winning, and the sustainability or longevity of a company, I think, does have a lot to do with building a partnerships channel, because it helps you to build a moat around the business, right? Like if you want a defendable business that you're going to be able to try to protect for many years to come in the future, having those partners is really integral, because at the end of the day, it's not that hard to build software. So there can always be startups that come through that have got funding and look at things differently. So I think that building that loyalty and that kind of camaraderie around like having partners where you're working together and there's a mutual benefit, which is the most important thing there, is massive. So those are just my thoughts.
Nice. We'll end it on that note. That was great. Now, Kieran, you're growing your team at ScaleStation. You've got some big plans over the next year or two. Where can people find you?
Yeah, we're definitely growing at the moment. So watch this space. We'll have a few posts and maybe some ads coming out in the near future. So if you want to connect with me, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. First name Kieran, last name Kron. first name's Irish, last name's German, but I'm first generation Australian, so go figure. And then our website is scalestation.io. So feel free to have a look at that. We've got a bunch of free resources. But yeah, those would probably be the main 2 channels.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on, Kieran. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Cheers, James.
Cheers.